Yeah. At the time I wrote this, these were the dates that he was proposing. Yeah.
So I didn't want to have to.
July 7th. We were all over the place.
I've got. I've never heard of books.
You'll figure it out. Yeah, actually, I must have mentioned. How you doing? Good, how are you? Yes, for the desk.
Deja vu.
Last one fast.
now. Welcome everybody to the June 18th, 2024 West Goshen Township Board of Supervisors meeting. And we'll begin the meeting tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you everybody for coming out tonight. A couple announcements before we begin. This meeting may be recorded by third parties, just so everybody's aware. We are live streaming on our YouTube channel, and there are extra copies of the agenda in the back of the room if anyone wants to grab one of those. Item number 3 on our agenda tonight is public comment. So if there's anybody here tonight that would like to make a comment regarding something that's not on the agenda tonight, now's the time to do it. Is there any public comment? Yes, Mr. Golden. Can you please come up? Thanks.
Good evening. Charlie Golden, Westchester, West Goshen. This might be the last time we have an opportunity to talk about electric vehicle charging stations before the board addresses it in the next meeting maybe and votes on it. Usually those comments are too late. I'd just like to share a few thoughts with you. After all my reviews and some letters, West Goshen Planning Commission twice now voted down the proposed electrical vehicle charging ordinance over the term shall. They prefer encourage. The Chester County Planning Commission reviewed and advised to follow the county guidelines and their objectives. They named 3 guidelines: Landscape 3, that's a 2018 comprehensive plan, the 2021 Chester County Climate Action Plan, and the Electrical Vehicle Planning e-tool, with there's many references in there, including, towards the end, something called the Driving PA Forward. I don't know if you have seen that or not, but the Driving PA Forward, it provides level 2 light-duty vehicle charging equipment rebates and electrical vehicle fast charging or hydrogen fuel cell equipment grants. Not only does nowhere in any of these guidelines use the word shall or mandate, but all of them are for encouragement, grants, incentives, and simply put, once again, I think it's not the county's position, and it shouldn't be the township's position, to force residents and businesses into a market against their will. The county reviewer for their planning commission explained to me that it takes the West Goshen Borough of Supervisors solicitor to direct him to review the use of the word shall and mandate. And he let me know that he was not directed to review that part, and his review will be completed at the end of this month. The current codes, which we follow, the 2018 building code, a lot of the language and definitions appear to be cherry-picked out of the 2021 building code in order to write this ordinance. Back in the 2018 codes, though, they do make reference to NFPA 70, Article 625, which is the electrical vehicle charging station requirements, and it does include some of the loose language in our ordinance. After reading that, I'm going to guess that nobody in their home actually meets those requirements today. It goes way beyond the vague conduit that we can install. It talks about if it's 60 amps, you have to have ventilation in your garage. There's a lot of requirements. So it just gets back to my point that I think we need to postpone pushing this ordinance through I'd like to see it pulled back until the codes properly address it. They're reviewing the next round of approvals for updating our 2018 code. It comes next year, I'm told. And I think at that point, it'll be properly addressed, reviewed by the proper people, and it'll give us more short ground to write this particular ordinance. But in the meantime, I'm going to propose alternative language this week, and I'll send it out, which I think is middle ground that I'd be willing to live with. I think the county would accept it, and we'll just see. So I'll be sending it out this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Does anybody from the board wish to address any comments made?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No? Okay.
Let me just say this, that on those 2 occasions when the planning commission did have to review and make a recommendation, it was not unanimous in either case. My own personal feeling, I'll just speak for myself, climate warming is real. The last 12 months have been the hottest on record, and that just doesn't seem like that's going to go away. We need to do something to address carbon emissions, which is contributing to, according to the science, to the climate warming that's occurring within this planet. EV vehicles are just part of the solution. They're not the entire magic bullet here, but they're certainly a part of it. And I think it behooves us as a township to do what we can to mitigate climate warming. That's the first point. The second point is that there is a vehicle calculator on the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation where you can calculate the economical savings between an ICE or an internal combustion engine versus an electric vehicle. And you will find that it's just an alarming, it's just this cost savings. So I think the electric vehicle is something that's going to be, and already is starting to catch on. And for us to pass this ordinance, it was doing a service for our residents, making it more feasible for them to install a level 2 charger there at the residence. So I think it would be a mistake for us not to take this opportunity and to seize this, this initiative here that's being suggested to us from the Sustainability Committee. And we've been very adamant, very clear about it, to move forward with this ordinance for the betterment of our township.
I don't disagree with anything you said, but to add to that, the last vote at the West Goshen Planning Committee had 2 opposers. One made it clear that everyone will own an electric vehicle, so we have to do this now. Mr. Husband made that statement. I'm sure he would repeat it vigorously. In the SAC, well, in another planning, the earlier planning commission in West Goshen, a new member of the SAC said he expects government to force people to do this type of thing, something to that effect. So in both cases, these people are purely into government mandating things. And my phrase is, if the government mandates it, guarantee it's a bad product. You're mandating electric vehicles, but you're cutting out the hydrogen fuel cell equipment market, and I don't think that's right. And maybe way back a couple hundred years ago, the mayor of Gettysburg or something mandated horse post hitches because everybody had to own a horse, and we don't see many of those around. And I guess I would expect in my fuzzy crystal ball that you're going to see these electric vehicle charging stations around our neighborhood, and they're going to be as obsolete as horse hitches, horse post hitches.
I appreciate your comment, Mr. Golden. We are going to move on. I will look to, I guess you're going to send something to the board this week. We are going to discuss this at our July 2nd meeting, so you'll have an opportunity then to air any grievances or you can speak about it then. And I know that there are some things that we had spoken with our solicitor about regarding the IBC codes that I myself want to be more clear about. So hopefully we can get some more details around that, and whatever I find out, I will send to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And I just want to make it clear, these aren't grievances. I just enjoyed talking to Mr. Hellman on this subject.
No, it's
all
been a
the
good
time.
conversation.
Thank you for time. Thank you for everybody's time.
Thank you, thank you. Are there any other public comments
Yes.
tonight? Yes, sir.
And the reason why, Sal Prisco, if you guys know me now, I get into the Greek credentials, but they're out there. Again, pro-EV. So this board told me to go to the planning commission and basically, I think Mr. Walsh said, hey, be an encouragement because I'm a fact person. And I introduced myself to that, and I recognized everybody there other than the gentleman to the left, which was his name was Mr. Did you say was it husband?
Yes.
Okay, his husband, okay. So I didn't recognize him. I recognized Mr. Hellman. I guess they were alternates that were introduced as such. So I went there with an open mind because Mr. Walsh said to go there with an open mind, which I did. And I was a bit surprised, and then I dare say at the end, a bit disillusioned, okay? The surprise was that, there was a board that obviously had clearly made a recommendation to you folks, which then, went back to them. And they were about ready to make another recommendation, and, but myself and Mr. Golden had spoken. And then probably a good, and you probably can tell from the video, probably a better part of 20 or 30-minute debate went back and forth. And it was very, very clear debate about, look, we get the idea, we get the concept, and Mr. Hellman, I'll address the facts that he stated, or the narrative that he stated about them in a moment, because that's what I do for a living. But it was pretty obvious to me that we're gonna mandate, and Mr. Husband did say, look, the government pushed DVDs, and look how much of a success they were. And it's like, it made no sense to me because they were obsoleted 10 years later. But the point was that sometimes the government just has to do things. And that, I started off, my comment was, I am all for mandates when there is a factual vetted good and bad. So like, we don't pour raw sewage into the Brandywine. That's a bad thing. It benefits all the citizens, all the taxpayers. But when we get to things like mandating something, which EVs, okay, which again, in my world, I understand the world, they do the calculations, okay? And simply put, there is no clear-cut anything. Mr. Hellman, the carbon footprint of an EV is greater than that of a hybrid, which is greater than that of an internal combustion engine that gets over 35 miles to the gallon.
I have to disagree.
But I'm in the industry and I do the math, and I will sit there. We had the conversation in the parking lot, but that's fine. I understand what you're saying, but this is what I do for a living. If we want, we can get out the math book. I have no problem. But neither here nor there. The point is, I'm not against EVs. When they can prove to me that we're not sitting in a bath at EMI, I want to have one. I don't want my kids to have one because I want to make sure I have grandchildren. I'm a little concerned about that. And what you brought up about, I guess there's an EV truck that's out there that they're for the police, that somebody's driving around all day long. I'm concerned for that person, to be quite honest with you. Again, I want one of these, but I have to prove that the EMI bath that I'm taking is not a bad one. But neither here nor there. The whole point was the disillusionment was the following. I went there thinking that I was going to hear a reasonable discourse and debate, but it was, this is what we believe, and then, if you will, there was two rabble rousers. And Mr. Hellman, you had at least, you were stating fact, or what your beliefs were. And the other gentleman was just saying, you just have to do this because sometimes the government's going to force this. And that troubles me because there was not a clear-cut black and white mandate. I understand moving forward for the sake of helping people, but if the better part of the citizens and the taxpayers of this township are not asking for it, and there's no black and white clear-cut benefit to them, like keeping sewage out of the Brandywine, I asked the question, I think I may have asked this question of this board the first time around. If there's no clear-cut facts and nobody's asking for it, why are we even having this discussion? And I guess I asked that question to you because I know it brought up, and I know it kind of, I didn't want to use political expediency because I know that it should be that way, but I don't see any clear-cut reason why we're even having the discussion. Other than it's a commission over here says it's a good idea, and this group over here says it's not a good idea, why don't you just have a recommendation? So I want that on the record, and I asked the question to the board, why are we having this conversation in the first place? Why are we debating this? Okay? And you're welcome to ask me questions, answers, and if you want, we'll do the math after the meeting if you like, sir.
Thank you, Mr.
DePrisco. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment tonight? No? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to our first action item, which is number 4, the discussion regarding the following applications before the zoning hearing board. I think tonight we're going to switch things up a little bit. I know that you need to be somewhere So we're gonna look at application number 6-2024, which is the application for West Goshen Shopping Center from Capital Enterprises, Inc., requesting relief from sections 84-52 R9 and section 84-52, table 1, pertaining to signage. Thank you for being here.
Hi, good evening. Carrie Nace, a law firm of Fox Rothschild, here this evening on behalf of Capital Enterprise. Thank you very much for taking things out of order. Thank you to the applicant ahead of me. I have to race down to Abington for a zoning hearing after this. And thank you for meeting at 6 so that I can be at other places tonight. As you may recall, we were previously before you, beginning of the year, back I believe it was January at this point, proposing various signage with respect to the redevelopment of the West Goshen Shopping Center. We have a new retail tenant that's coming in, a new fast food restaurant, and then just in general, the overall redevelopment of the center, proposing some directional signage. We had some discussion about the freestanding monument sign that we're proposing along Italy Pike, as well as a freestanding monument sign along Turner Lane as well. We did proceed with the hearing. We had a very lengthy hearing in front of the zoning hearing board. I think the hearing went well, testimony went in well, and the zoning hearing board was very fair, I think, in issuing their decision. They did grant some relief. They did not grant some relief. I don't know if you received a copy of that decision and are familiar with the relief that was granted. Unfortunately, during that hearing, there wasn't really an opportunity to kind of discuss which signs they may deny, or which signs they had concerns with. In fact, there was some discussion back and forth about some of the signage, but not really an opportunity at that point in time to kind of go back with different options to try to address some of their concerns. So after they had issued the decision, we took a look at the variances that they did not grant and with respect to both tenants. For the retail tenant, we were looking for 9 wall signs. They did grant variances to allow 5 of them, which are along the front, the side, and then the rear. And then they denied a variance for 4 additional wall signs. The retail tenant was able to live with the relief that was granted. But one of the items that they also denied was we were proposing a freestanding, and it's actually, I jumped ahead, I'm sorry, so you're on this one. If you could go to the last slide here. They have in this one here, it's a freestanding directional sign is what I would call it. It's a drive-up sign, they call it a beacon sign. There's 2 of them that are proposed in the parking lot that faces 202. So what's going to be kind of their main field, but that's where they have their drive-up area. And these directional signs don't have specific regulations in the ordinance, so when we look at them, they technically fall under the guideline of a freestanding other sign, which has a height requirement of 6 feet. When we were before the zoning hearing board, we were asking for a variance to allow a 12-foot sign. They did not agree with that. We went back, we looked at it, and just because of the height of some of the vehicles that you now have these days, the retail tenant was still concerned that 6 was not going to be sufficient to really provide directional signage internal to that parking area. So we are requesting a variance to allow that particular sign to be 8 feet instead of 6. So we were able to reduce it from what was previously proposed at 12 down to 8. So that's the first variance that we're asking for. The second one relates to the fast food restaurant for Chick-fil-A. So Shelby, if you could go back to the first slide, we'll start there again. So Chick-fil-A was requesting variance to allow 4, you can go next one to the elevations. They were requesting a variance to allow 5 wall signs on their building where 3 are permitted. You can go to the, but we can leave it there, that's good. So it was 4 wall signs that said Chick-fil-A, and then they had their logo, and then also a a small one that is now kind of part of their branding that says welcome neighbors and friends, and it says West Goshen on the bottom. That's in your packet as well. However, when you added up all of the square footage, it exceeded 200, which the zoning hearing board solicitor had interpreted that the total square footage permitted was 200 square feet. It was our understanding it was per wall. We thought it was in totality. So they denied that variance and said that Chick-fil-A was allowed to have 3 wall signs rather than 4. In looking at the signage, this is really part of their new branding, and they really feel that this is important to them to have at the front entrance of the door. So Shelby, if you go back to the, sorry that I wanted to stop at the site plan where it shows where the signs are. The next one. So what they did is they did remove 1 wall sign. Here we go, you can go to that. That's perfect. We previously had a wall sign on the rear of the building that faced Paoli Pike, kind of within that drive aisle area, the drive-through area. They removed that wall sign, so they will now have a wall sign on the corner where you first come in into the drive-through, and then as you go through on that other sign at the side of the building, they will have the Chick-fil-A logo, and then the front of the building, which is internal to the shopping center, they still have a wall sign that says Chick-fil-A, and then this logo, the branding kind of that says welcome friends and family, or friends and neighbors. By removing that wall sign on that rear building wall, we do come in compliance with the 200. We're actually under that now. It's totality, it's 170, let's see, I think it was 179 square feet. So essentially the variance that we're asking for is to allow 1 additional wall sign for the welcome friends and neighbors, which ends up being approximately 26 square feet in size. So those are the 2 additional. So it is still asking for relief, but it's less than what we were originally before the board for.
Is that welcome friends sign on a wall that has another sign, right? So there's
Correct. So if you go to the next page, and these here.
Yeah, okay, so there is 1 wall that has no signs, and that's the one you took down.
Correct, and that's the rear that faces Paoli Pike.
Okay, so it's less square feet,
Yes.
and you're in compliance. You came way down in square footage. Now you're just asking for the variance to allow 1 additional sign.
And before we were asking for 2 additional.
Just out of curiosity, why is there a different sign limit between a retail and a fast food restaurant? Like, why are they allowed to have, what is it, 5 for retail?
So they are.
Typically the signage allowances in the zoning ordinance are based on use. So it's just what people thought was appropriate at the time the ordinance was
So
written.
it's just what's in our,
It's just what's in our code currently.
okay.
Right, so the code currently has regulations for business signs, and so with the name of the tenant, it's considered a business sign, and it references that if you have multiple buildings on the same lot, then each building gets up to 3 signs per building.
Okay. Okay, so I mean, does the board have any objections or questions?
Just be neutral.
Take a neutral position, John? You guys think that's fine? Okay.
Fine with me, yeah. I mean, my objection the last time you were here, I think, was around all the proliferation of signs on Paoli Pike and the confusion and the size of those signs. I think the zoning hearing board made a fair determination on a compromised way forward on some of that. This here to me is internal to the site. The 3 sides of the building, you're putting them on all really either facing into the site and not towards Paoli Pike. So I'm usually good luck with your zoning hearing board for me.
Yeah, and then just for the other variance you're requesting, my only question is, it's 8, you're asking for 8 feet.
Correct.
Does that include the solar panel, or is that an additional?
No, it's just this, what's considered the sign area,
Yeah.
which is the base itself.
And so the solar panel will be on top of that, which is another.
What? That's about right. And it's bent. So it's not straight up and down, it is kind of on an angle.
Yeah.
I think that's not why they're not specifying height, is the overall height. And latitude, which direction it's facing.
Oh, I see, so it moves. Yeah, okay. So is the board, want to take a neutral position on that as well? No issues? Okay. All right.
Great, thank you very
Good
much.
luck. Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Have a good night. Okay, so we'll move over to application number 7-2024, which is the application for BB Real Estate Investments LLC for property at 20 Ellis Lane in the C4 Special Limited Business and Apartment District, requesting relief from sections 84-16C1 and 84-29E2.
Thanks, Mark.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. My name is Gina Gerber. I'm here on behalf of the applicant this evening for a zoning hearing board application. The applicant's representatives are here this evening. We're joined by Rich and Ted, who would like to tell you a little bit about their company and what they're planning to do on this site, because I believe this might be the first time the board has seen this proposed development. But before they do that, I'm going to very quickly walk you through the zoning relief that we're requesting for this site. So the interesting thing about this application at 20 Ellis Lane is, well, one of many things, but the first thing is that the relief that's being requested relates specifically to existing conditions on the site. So this is a property that currently has a historic home, single-family residence, as well as a bank barn. The applicant is proposing to demolish the bank barn due to the condition of that particular barn. They've had an opportunity to meet with the Historic Commission and discuss that preliminarily and talk pretty productively, I think, about reusing some of those materials as part of the overall development on the site. But they are very committed to retaining the historic home on the property, and they're
Where was all that in relation to that? Where's the barn? Is that the one?
so on the very, you'll see that this is a proposed plan. So the barn is actually along Ellis Lane. The home is closer to Stroudsburg.
So Ellis Lane is to the
Like
right.
right here.
Ellis Lane is to plan north, so the top.
The barn is not pictured on this, right?
That is
Because
correct.
it will have been demolished, yeah.
That is correct.
The barn is about here.
Ellis is
Yeah.
Whoops, I know.
We have the existing conditions plan, which I'm sure Brian will.
I will find it today, so I know where it is. I just don't know.
There we go, that works too.
And so the historical commission, it was a productive meeting.
It was a very
What
productive
what was
meeting.
their feedback?
So they understood why the bank barn needed to go. It's in pretty poor condition. It's not very salvageable. It doesn't have a whole lot of use for this particular proposed redevelopment of the site. But they were very interested in being able to reuse those materials on the site, which I believe my clients are also very dedicated and interested in doing as well, because I think it's going to have some architectural significance and aesthetic value on this property. They are planning on fixing up the house that's there and doing some renovation to the home itself, but keeping it as a single-family residential dwelling. They're proposing to introduce multifamily in the form of 8 townhouse units on this property. There are 2 packs of 4 townhouses. They're going to do some updated stormwater on the site. There's going to be some landscaping introduced as part of this use. Most of the development is going to be very internal to the site, so we think that the impact of neighboring developments is going to be pretty minimal. Now, we're here very preliminarily this evening because we've submitted a zoning hearing board application. You all will be able, hopefully, if we get to the zoning hearing board successfully, to be able to review this proposal in a bit more detail as part of the land development plan. But the variances that we're seeking this evening are relating to the existing lot size. So this property is in the C4 district. The minimum lot size in that district is 4 acres. In that district, for multifamily use, the minimum lot size is 3 acres. This lot is 2.2 acres. So as it stands, this lot is non-conforming with regard to the requirements of the ordinance in the district. So we are asking for a variance in order to proceed with development of a multifamily use on a lot less than 3 acres. The other relief that we're requesting is with regard to the 3 parking spaces closest to Ellis Lane. Those are 3 parking spaces that are currently existing on the lot. They're adjacent to the barn. The applicant is proposing to keep those parking spaces. Everything is going to be repaid, but those parking spaces are within 100 feet of the right-of-way of Ellis Lane. So the relief is requested in order to just maintain the existing location of those parking spaces. We think it's a good idea to keep those parking spaces because that is going to be where the mail drop-off is going to be. There's going to be mailboxes there for the townhouse. Also for overflow visitor parking, that's a good location for that. So we don't anticipate there's going to be a huge amount of daily use of those parking spaces by residents for the townhouse. But we do think overall it's a good idea in terms of land planning in order to retain those parking
I
spaces.
mean, you're gonna have those metal mailboxes, kind of where everybody walks up and gets their mail.
It'll be more of a communal mailbox
Yeah.
situation. I don't know exactly how it's planned on, but
Right.
something in
Multiple
to that
mailboxes,
effect.
everybody's mail.
Yeah. It'll be an easier mail drop for the mail deliveryman rather than having to go to 8 different townhouses on the property as well as a single family residence.
Yeah.
Was the idea. So that is the ins and outs of the zoning relief that we're requesting. I am going to turn it over to Ted for just a couple of minutes to tell you all a bit about the company and what they're proposing to do.
I have a question before you do
Yes,
that. So
please.
what will the legal structure of this be? Are you going to have a single HOA managing this property going forward with one single family home and 8 potential townhomes?
That's
Are you
the
going to
idea.
subdivide the single family home off? Or
We are not planning to subdivide the property, particularly in light of the fact that we're already a little bit low on the lot requirement. So the idea was to do some sort of planned community condominium homeowners association. It hasn't been nailed down exactly how that's going to be created and what the best structure is for that, legally speaking, but it will be, the property will be in that sort of configuration. So it will continue to be a single family dwelling, but it will be part of an association or condominium.
And what's determining the number of townhomes? Why not 4, 6, 8, 10? What determines what you've come up with?
I'm going to let my client tell you a little bit about the densities and why they landed on 8. So.
Okay.
Good evening. Thanks for taking the time to meet with us today. My name is Rich Sansolari, and I'm a third-generation builder. This is my business partner, Ted Borrell. We were both born and raised in Chester County, and both currently live in the borough here, so we're pretty familiar with the area. Ted and I started BB Real Estate and Chester County Contracting back in 2017. We started extensively developing single-family houses, and then quite a few which were historic homes, so we're no stranger to historic properties. We grew into multifamily dwellings and larger projects. Our projects focused mainly in Chester County, but we also venture out to Lancaster County. I'm going to let Ted take it over and talk a little bit more about our project.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. So Gina did a phenomenal job describing the project, but I just wanted to kind of go over a few more details. So our proposed project at 20 House Lane is to develop 8 new townhomes in accordance with the C4 zoning. So this project is special for a couple of reasons, primarily the historic resource that sits on the property. We had an opportunity with Historic Commission, which went very well. We're excited to not just reuse materials from the barn, but renovate the single-family home as well to bring up to today's standards. The outside of the structure is actually in remarkable shape, so it's primarily on the inside. So our goal here is really twofold. It's to develop the property and maintain the historic resource all at once. To your question, Sean, on density. So zoning would permit 13 units per 6 units per acre per code. In order to maintain the historic resource and to really make it what we think is responsible development, we landed on 8 units with preserving about a ½ acre of open space for the single family home. That's something that we're pretty proud of, and I think it's something that will help the community as we're not just trying to cram as many units, which we're all familiar with developers tend to do. So that combined with our landscape plan, which you can see there, we think really accomplishes both of our goals, developing property responsibly while maintaining the historic resource. So we hope to have your support, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have. But we just want to get up and meet you guys. It's the first time we're here at the board, so we're very happy.
Yes, well, welcome. It's an exciting project, for sure. I'm sure you guys are excited about it. So you're going to sell the single-family home and a family or whoever's going to move in, and then guess these people will live in the townhouse. They're all like one neighborhood or?
Yeah, it's gonna be a for-sale product, so everything will be a for-sale product.
Okay.
But yes, it'll be under, we're thinking, with the, or with some sort of an HOA. The grounds will be managed by an association, which we thought was another important thing. It does, you know, it's being taken care of. Not that homeowners don't do that.
Yeah, so our township manager actually included a very interesting factoid. I guess it comes from there's another development in the township that's 4 acres.
That's correct. That's the, so the Reserve of West Goshen development, which is New Countryside Drive, that was approved in 2016. That property has the underlying zoning of C4, but there's an overlay on it that allowed for 28 townhomes on an original roughly 4.1 acre lot. So there was an overlay district that was created in order to allow that many homes on that lot. I think, if I can just speak off the cuff, I think what they're proposing at this site is much more advantageous than what was done there.
Yeah, 28 townhomes they squeezed into a 4-acre lot.
Correct.
And so this is going to be 8 on a lot that's not much smaller.
Well, how many acres is the actual townhouse? Because the house is taking up so many acres, well, half an acre for sure for the private lawn, and then the house itself. So how much is actually going to be on the townhouse part acreage? Acre and a half is what? Okay, so there's really 8 homes going on an acre and a half, not 2 acres.
Well, they average it over the development tract. You're correct, it is averaged over the development tract, which is how we kind of read the language, with the goal to preserve that, single-family resource.
I just want to say that I was at the Historic Commission meeting, and it was their presentation was very well received.
Good. That's good to hear.
I have one question on stormwater. So I presume there's no stormwater management on this property today. Is it in an area that there's any flooding that you know of, or any issues with storm events?
I don't know.
So it's already not in too bad an area in terms of that, and then obviously you're going to meet the current standards of stormwater management, so you'll be held to that improvement, if you like, of stormwater management.
Absolutely. Yeah, the lot's relatively flat. Yeah, it lends itself well to.
So just one comment on this rendition, and this is just an observation. It looks like the parking is all in front of 4 of the townhomes, and the other 4 don't really have as easy an access to it. I'm not sure if you're going to reconsider how this lays out, or again, overall it would still be the same footprint of impervious surface, but it might.
The only thing I'll add, thank you. We noticed that as well. There are garages for these units, so there is a.
So it's really guest parking then.
Exactly, yeah, it's overflow, so.
And what's the square footage of the unit, each unit going to be townhome?
It'll be between 1,400 to 1,800 square feet.
With one car garage?
Correct, yeah. So they're not 3,000 square foot luxury townhomes that are $1 million. It's an entry level townhome, which is really hard to find in West Goshen.
That's really
Basically
good news,
impossible.
yeah.
So.
That's great.
So the historical building there, how extensive is your refurbishment going to be? Could you do a complete rip out and rebuild the interior? I mean, what's the plan for that?
We haven't gotten too far into that. It's a great question. It's going to be a lot of things like mechanicals. So I should imagine an old home doesn't have central AC and central heat. So things that a modern day homeowner would like. So it's mechanicals, probably kitchen, bathrooms. It's not going to, the walls are plaster and they're 2 feet thick. So there's really nothing to gut. There's nowhere to go with the interior, but it's in really good shape. It's been well maintained by the owners for a number of years, and just a reasonable upgrade.
Is the building on the historical registry now?
It is. Well, I'm sorry. I should say the National Historic Registry. I'm not sure about. I know we went over in the township book and we did see it. It's noted as a historic resource.
It's noted on the township's historic resource atlas.
So you have to build it, refurbish it to certain standards to maintain that?
Primarily for the exterior. For the exterior is where the standards are, which again, the exterior is in great shape. We have done, as Rich mentioned, a couple of projects in the borough that were historic, and they've got wood windows and all the things that you're thinking about, which was quite expensive. Certain materials, but yeah, for the most part, it'll be a mutual coordination.
In terms of reusing materials from the barn, I mean, what does that really mean in practice? What are you going to be able to salvage, and where would it be used?
Great question. So it's hard to see on the plans right now, but at the entranceway, there's going to be a series of landscape pillars. I think there's even some beams. We haven't gone fully through with the Historic Commission based on what they want to see, but we talked about a number of pillars, maybe a plaque. Rich and I talked amongst ourselves, maybe a naming convention as well for the property that pays homage to its history. But physically speaking, it'll be stone landscape pillars, potentially a landscape wall. Things within reason that we can do that are not cost prohibitive, but again, essentially use as much of the materials as we can.
Thank you.
It's hard to see on the plans, but it is there.
I know that you said that the traffic impact would be minimal. Are you working with a traffic consultant, and have you done traffic studies?
We haven't started yet. We want to go to zoning hearing and have that discussion, but it's all part of my development.
Okay.
And I'm doing the traffic study.
What does the board want to do? Do you guys want to support, oppose, or remain neutral for this application?
Be neutral, because we don't really support per se. I mean,
Planning, zoning.
Yeah, we'll let it go through the zoning hearing board process. Yes, we have a question.
This abuts the shopping center.
Yes.
I think this might be a good opportunity. Ellis Lane is really busy road for a sidewalk along Ellis Lane at least, so that the residents from this community and maybe other residents can walk to the shopping center without being hit by a car.
That's a great idea.
And I know I've been pushing sidewalks, and this is, I think, a good opportunity, even Strasburg Road, because I think we're going to see in the, maybe not near future, but in the future, other of these properties developed into other more high-density housing.
It's a great point, and I know you've been pushing sidewalks, and if you make it through zoning, I guess that's something we can discuss in the next step, right? Okay. We appreciate the board thoughts.
while we're talking about suggestions here, what you're thinking about making these the townhomes particularly be EV capable?
Something, honestly, tonight's discussion was the first we had really thought about that. Our goal was to focus on making them as economical as possible. Not that that doesn't necessarily go along with that, but it's something to consider.
So a quick question on that. So you think the electrical panel will be in the garage? Most likely?
Well, that would probably be good.
Yeah. They'd be on the first floor, either the garage or the utility room, right?
The utility room would abut the garage, most likely?
Within 10 feet or so.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you plan on having any type of landscaping or buffers or anything around the property?
This is actually a conceptual landscape plan that you see up here on the property. So there are some existing landscaping features, mature vegetation and trees around the property. What you see that comes out a little bit brighter is the new landscaping that's proposed. So you'll see around the exterior of the townhomes, there's a large amount of new landscaping proposed, and then some landscaping that's going to supplement what is already there. So there should be a really good, dense landscaping buffer.
You don't envision any type of basin, any stormwater engineering practices at all?
To be determined. We haven't done the testing. If the soil rates are good, then we can probably put it underground. If the soil rates are poor, we have to go more of like a rain garden route, then we'll obviously work with staff to figure that out. But we really need to get through zoning first, and then if they say yes, then we have the ability to really get into all of the details that we're going to be required for land development.
Oh, yes, because if it's a basin, you're going to need obviously more room, more acreage. It's going to take away from the townhomes themselves in building them.
Agreed. I think in discussions with my name is Chuck Dobson with Lidland Design. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself earlier, but with respect to the room available for the stormwater, I know there's an open area next to the existing residence which you could utilize, and there's also opportunity to do under pavement stormwater management within the parking areas of the townhouses themselves. So relative to if we can use a single facility or one, two, or three facilities, I think we can figure that out. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that.
Okay, one last question. I just noticed the second axis there is kind of in a different color. Is that asphalt or is it
It's intended to be an emergency access. It kind of lines up across the driveway, which I believe goes to, is owned by the fire company, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so it's really just an emergency access. It would be gated off, but if something should happen to the main access there on Ellis Lane, we wanted to make sure that it's a secondary point of access for emergency services.
And Chuck, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they said it was going to be Grass Creek.
Yeah, Grass Creek, yeah, exactly. So it's not gonna look like, it's gonna be available for EMS services, but it's gonna be, visually, it won't be something that a normal person entering the development is gonna wanna use.
Great, great. Well, thank you for being here. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 5, which is the discussion regarding a proposed ordinance amendment to prohibit the distribution of polystyrene containers by establishments in West Goshen Township. Mr. Bayshore, would you like to introduce this topic?
Yes. Madam Chair, before the board this evening is discussion regarding proposed ordinance amendment to prohibit the distribution of polystyrene containers, otherwise known as styrofoam containers, by establishments in the township. This recommendation comes from the Sustainability Advisory Committee, who discussed this proposal at recent meetings, as well as reviewed ordinances that have acted such prohibitions. I provided a sample ordinance that was enacted by Ambler Borough, Montgomery County, and this was the primary ordinance discussed during the review by the SEC. Reviewing the regulations enacted by Ambler Borough, this could possibly be added to Chapter 61, but I would defer to the Township Solicitor on the appropriate place to codify this regulation if the board desires to proceed forward. Our Solicitor's Office also did research on other municipalities who have enacted similar type of regulations. They provided sample ordinances from Euclid, Tredyffrin, and Upper Marion Townships pertaining to this topic, as well as Phoenixville Borough. Please be advised that the provisions of an ordinance of this type, if enacted, would primarily apply to items such as cups and takeout food containers. This would not apply to items such as containers for food in a grocery store, such as like egg cartons and things of that nature that the township wouldn't have the authority to regulate. So with that, the discussion is to the board.
Okay, so just a little bit more context. So as many people know, I guess it was a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, we enacted a single-use ban on plastic bags.
Almost 3 years ago.
Almost 3 years ago, I can't believe it. Single-use plastics. We passed an ordinance prohibiting the distribution of single-use plastic bags in commercial establishments. And I think all in all, it's been very successful. And straws. We modeled that ordinance from Westchester Borough's ordinance, as among others, that had passed similar ordinances. And in speaking with the Sustainability Advisory Committee, they thought it would be a good time to include polystyrene, and I want to be careful and not use the word styrofoam because I think that's an actual brand
That's correct.
of styrofoam. So I would prefer to use the term polystyrene containers in a similar manner that we prohibit the single-use plastic bags. It seems as though other townships, other boroughs throughout the state have included the polystyrene in their ordinances with the single-use plastic bag and straw bans. And to be quite frank, styrofoam is terrible for the environment. There are alternatives, and the Sustainability Committee and I believe that it's now the time to add polystyrene to our list of prohibited items.
Well, then we have to be careful about the nomenclature. Polystyrene is a broad category of plastics. The specific one I believe we're talking about here, which is colloquially called styrofoam, is listed here, which is it's an expanded polystyrene foam. And I think this is what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Not because, like I said, there's many other kinds of plastic that would fall in the category of polystyrene.
So for example, in the borough of Ambler, who passed an ordinance on polystyrene, they define expanded polystyrene food service product, a foam-based form of plastic packaging made from styrene, including containers or plates for food, beverage cups, trays, and clamshell-style packaging, often referred to by the trademark name styrofoam. That's how they define it. It seems to be pretty consistent throughout all of these ordinances as far as the definition of what it is that we're talking about prohibiting. I'm sure the board has had the opportunity to look through these different ordinances, and I think that this is something that, I know at least for myself going through this, there are bits and pieces of each one that I like, and other things that I would want to take a second look at before moving forward with something like this. But does anyone have any feedback or questions, concerns?
Did the SAC have any conversation, communication with Ambler? Because they enacted this close to 2 years ago now, so is there any learning from there?
I don't know if anybody from the SAC contacted Ambler.
So the way we found Ambler's, Ambler Borough's ordinance was, this discussion came out of a meeting at the SAC, and we just did a quick Google search to see if there were any municipalities that had enacted such an ordinance, that we could start looking at what the language may look like, and Ambler was the first one that came up. So that was kind of where it came from. But to the best of my knowledge, no one's had any communication with any of the municipalities that have enacted such
Yes,
an
Tradiffa did it in September 22 as well, so they've got a couple of years of experience now at this point. I mean, there are viable alternatives to these containers, no doubt about that.
I had one of the major discussions during the SAC meeting was Chick-fil-A is under construction in West Goshen Shopping Center, the products that they use. I had the opportunity to speak with an individual who may be the manager of that facility, and he advised, and I told him about this discussion, and he advised that they are actually experimenting in markets that have enacted this type of ban with like a different kind of like paper product that they hope to roll out to all their facilities.
And what about like Dunkin' Donuts? One reason I don't drink Dunkin' Donuts coffee is because they had been using the polystyrene. Do they still, or have they gone to something else?
It's store by store. Once the store ran out of the polystyrene, now they're using cardboard.
Okay.
They don't give you any sleeves for the cups, so you burn your hands in your coffee now.
The other question that I would have is, how many businesses is this actually going to affect? I mean, if we really want to look into it, we should be talking to Acme to stop selling that stuff, and I don't think we're going to be doing that.
No, so this is not, and there's very clear language in these ordinances that it does not prohibit styrofoam that's been manufactured, I guess, somewhere else and is being sold in the grocery store. Similar to our plastic bag ordinance.
Right.
You can't prohibit trash bags, for example, or.
So my question is, how many businesses is this going to affect, and are we just going after the little guy?
It would really depend. We'd have to go back and look. I still have the list from when we did the notifications prior to the enforcement of the prohibition on plastic bags and straws. I believe there were 94 businesses on that list that were impacted. It would primarily be restaurants and food service establishments on that list. So think Dunkin' Donuts, I'm just naming restaurants. I don't know.
Well, a lot of the major chains have moved away from styrofoam anyway. So to answer your question, Nate, is it going to affect the little guys? And I assume what you mean are like the mom and pop kind of
talking about like
pizza
the
places,
Chinese
things like that.
restaurants and
Yes,
that sort of thing.
if they are using styrofoam, yes, that's going to affect them. And in the same way that the single-use plastic straw, ban affected them. And there are alternatives. If there weren't, I don't know that we would be able to do this, and I don't know that other municipalities would have been successful in doing it.
And to kind of go further on your point, the entities we had the biggest problems with during the initiation of the plastic bag and straw prohibition were large franchise stores, not individual businesses.
Yeah.
And we had, I think we've sent maybe 5 enforcement notices for the plastic bag and straw ban. So it's been pretty easy to administer.
Well, the only comment I would make is, the lightweight nature of these materials, the disposability mindset that people have had in the past, has created a mess with them. So we addressed the plastic bag issue. I've definitely seen an improvement in roadside trash, at least in the general area, in the last few years, because I believe change away from that. When I do these green cleanups and things, the most disheartening thing is to see this kind of cup, semi-crushed, with hundreds of little beads all over the place. You know you can't clean it up, and they're there for God knows how long. It's not biodegradable.
Right.
And it gets in the food chain of all kinds of creatures. It's just a horrible product. And unfortunately, people don't take care of disposing of them properly, and the consequences are a degraded environment for everyone. So I would be supportive of finding a solution that prohibits the disposable takeout into the environment type use of these products.
So then does the board support, as a next step, kind of approaching this the way that we approached the EV ordinance, going back to the SAC, having the SAC do some work in looking at all of these different ordinances, putting something together that can come before the board in the future?
So I would ask Chris, if the board's supportive of this, can we go straight to Kristen and Ari to produce something, or do we need to actually point to get the best of all of these things pulled together and then present that to Buckley Bryan?
I think it would be beneficial to have the SAC review all of these ordinances. They're all very similar, but it would be good to kind of look at them all together, since we've only really looked at antlers, and have Ari or Kristen in attendance at the SAC meeting. The SAC meets next week, so this is certainly something that can be accomplished in a relatively short period of time. And unlike a land use ordinance, this doesn't need to go through a hefty review process. The one thing I would say is, much like with the plastic bag and straw ban, where there was a period for when enforcement would start, we should take a similar step there to allow people to, gear up and get ready for it, and we'll do the same sort of notification that we did previously. But I think maybe having you or Kristen attend.
Sean, to your point, that this is not a complicated ordinance, but it would be helpful to have feedback from the SAC on the finer points of what they want, because there are some nuances between the different ordinances. If they can take a pass through them and identify, sort of like picking the color on your car.
I'd like the SAC also to call the other townships to see what some of the pros and cons are, or somebody should be able to do that. And then my second question is, would it be advantageous to combine this with the existing ordinance for the plastic bags and straws versus creating another ordinance just for that?
No, certainly, this would make sense to include embedded in the plastics, single-use plastic bag and straw ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Which is what the other municipalities seem to be doing.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, plus I'd like to, not just the SEC to review it and compile what would be a good model here, but also they'll let me come before the board here and explain what their feelings are and advocate for it.
Okay, very good. We'll bring it back to the SAC.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
And I'm probably rolling eyes with this guy. I'm the chemical engineer working at DuPont that makes some of the alternative to that stuff, okay? So I I have zero vested interest, don't care which way it goes. I just want to alert you to unintended consequences, okay? Cradle and grave again. So, Mr. Hellman, you're concerned about CO2 loading the environment, okay? So cradle and grave, you get that, and we do math again. My concern is anytime that these type of ordinances because you said the other ones were successful. It's successful because, like you, Mr. Wall said, you're seeing less on roadside, meaning it's an anti-litter issue, or is it, climate change and CO2 in the environment thing? Because the latter, there's nothing to sustain. The former tells me that we're letting people litter too much, because the net effect of the energy used to produce something that contains something and ship it to a place, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, cradle to grave, again, is probably a net loser. I have not done the math on this one here. I'm just telling you unintended consequences. So what's the goal for going non-plastic? I know it's not biodegradable, and I was working on an alternative to that. So what's the goal?
So I'm a chemical engineer too.
Love it, let's talk.
So 45 years ago, I worked on a design team that actually was a project to do a styrene monomer plant. The coating process, we didn't even look at the environmental consequences of that design at the time. It was a university thing. So my answer to your question around unintended consequences is, when you have change, people find ways to improve something to make it cheaper, better, environmentally better, and you find it drives success.
Right.
If you allow something to continue as a poor habit, decades of styrene, polystyrene getting into the environment, it's bad. It will just continue. And every year I think we'll see less trash in our environment, and people's behavior does not change.
So it's the trash thing. I'm for
it's very trash because I don't believe there is an unintended consequences if the alternative is worse to the environment.
Yeah. I'm just hoping it's not, because these coated cups, I'm concerned about these coated cups. I was making something that was making the biodegradable plastic cups out of cheese waste. It's great, except then polyethylene beat it out from a cost competitiveness standpoint.
Of course.
So it's kind of, so it's like stuff they would throw out on the crops. So I don't use this stuff one way or another, I really don't care. I just want to make sure that, I know the committee over here, which is, obviously it's got some chops right now. So make sure they're making decisions for the right reasons. And I get it, getting people to behave responsibly, like throw your stuff out. I mean, I carry around tracks in the front seat of my car, and I wait till I get to a recycle bin to get collected up and divided. But so the success of the previous programs was measured how? So the anti-straw, I think it was at
The compliance, probably?
No, not the compliance. Was it the, not that compliance is one thing, that success is people behaving.
It was not challenged in court.
Okay, I'm talking about was the success that we saw less plastic bags.
In my view, yes. In my view, yes.
I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, it's
question.
not like we had a baseline and spent thousands of dollars
Right.
saying how many plastic bags can we see in West Goshen in 1999 versus today.
Right.
But the bottom line is, I don't see plastic bags
Okay, well, then
blown
that's
out
good.
of the back of trucks driving down the road.
Well, and it's not really a complicated
Yeah.
answer, sir. Like, it's bad for the environment. Animals can eat it.
That's right.
It's not natural, and it shouldn't be made.
That's
So
right.
we don't want to see it in our township, and I'm saying we, as in the sustainability committee, at least, and myself.
Right.
And it's literally that simple.
But again, I've seen so many unintended consequences of it. The next thing is a coated.
So you think something negative is going to happen if styrofoam goes away?
If it's coated, okay, Ms. Gagny, if it's coated cardboard and the coating is more toxic,
I'm not talking about coated cardboard.
well, if coated cardboard might replace.
It might, but it's an alternative that we haven't even discussed.
Okay, so.
I'm talking about a single product that is bad for the environment,
That's.
bad for
That's polystyrene.
animals, bad for everybody, that I don't think should be
I-
distributed in West Goshen Township.
Okay, that, I understand that's your opinion.
There are many unintended consequences of many different things in this world,
I'm cautious.
and it doesn't really mean that you shouldn't try to do your best to get rid of the ones that are already harmful to the environment, which is where this is coming from. Thank you. Doug, did you have a question?
Excuse me.
No. This,
No.
I'm the chair of this meeting, and I
Please,
appreciate
please
your
don't.
comment. Now I'm asking Dr. White to make his. I think you've had plenty of opportunity to express your opinion. Thank you. Go ahead.
Would there be an exception for medical or dental use? Sometimes we use these for
Yes,
insulating cold packs to give it to the patient had surgery.
yes. There will be exceptions for things like medical uses, and we're going to include that in the ordinance and do our research on that for sure. Thank you for your question. Yes.
Question.
Yes.
As far as this is concerned, how about outlawing polystyrene packaging such as peanuts?
I don't believe the township has the authority to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Fisher.
Answer the question.
Any other comments on this?
Yes, we got to wait for.
Hearing none. Okay, yep, we have a way forward. Thank you very much. Moving on.
And, Madam Chair, I will make sure that Mr. Alexander has copies of all the ordinances.
Okay.
And I do, I want to apologize, I just noticed now, they did submit a letter to the board. I failed to include that, so I'll make sure that's circulated to the board by the end of the week.
Appreciate it. Yep, I saw that. Okay. So moving on to item number 6, which is the public hearing and possible approval of ordinance number 7-2024, amending Chapter 57, Park and Recreation Areas of the West Goshen Township Code of Ordinances. So we discussed this at our April 18th, May 22nd, and June 4th meetings. We discussed the language we wanted to include in this permit criteria. And we've been presented now tonight with this ordinance. Does the board have any questions or comments on the ordinance for Ari?
I mean, we talked through this ad nauseum with Dan and others 2 or 3 times, so I presume we've just gone through our advertising period or whatever it is, and we're ready to go.
That's right. Madam Chair, if I could, just 2 items of housekeeping for the record. 2 items to mark. B1 is the proof of publication of this draft ordinance in the Daily Local News on June 10th. And B2 is an email dated June 5th from my assistant Jill Kirk to the Chester County Law Library and the Daily Local News providing the proposed amendment for public inspection. Those are the only board exhibits, but I will pass them to the manager.
Thank you very much. So is there a motion then to approve ordinance number 7-2024?
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments on this motion? Yes, Mr. Bowman.
Is this the one
with permits and
For the parks,
having to have a certain amount of police?
correct.
Okay, when I read the meeting minutes on that subject, I don't think it quite covered my comment earlier, so I'm just going to quickly repeat it. And that is, say you have in our larger park, West Goshen Park, 3 big events at once, and neither of them individually require police. What happens? Because all 3 together, they start to use up all the parking spaces and would have easily exceeded the need for police.
So in section 2, under F, under 3, in this ordinance, it reads, other events or activities occurring at or near the same time and location of the proposed activity are basically going to be included in the discussion of the police requirements. So we're going to be doing a much better job, I think, moving forward, working with the sports leagues and whoever's applying to come up with a solution on that front and make sure that we can handle that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Great. All right, so hearing no more comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving ordinance number 7-2024, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries 5-0. I'm going to excuse our solicitor for the night. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
And moving on to item number 7, which is the discussion regarding the Westtown Way Barker Park Stream Bank Restoration Project outlined in West Goshen Township's pollution reduction plan. Mr. Kolakowski, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Got the website catch up. There it goes. Good evening. Before you tonight, I have an update for the Barker Park Westtown Way Stream Bank Restoration Project that is proposed in our PTNDL plan. If you remember, earlier this year, we did solicit proposals from HRG and Carroll Engineering for the project. The board chose to award the project to Carroll Engineering. Discussing the project with Chris Peterson, they engaged the services of Penn's Trails for their wetland scientist, had them go out, do the wetland survey, and then wetlands investigation, flag the wetlands. Carroll surveyed it, and they provided me with the survey plan, which you see here on the screen. Carroll Engineering then approached the DEP to discuss the project, and DEP came back very adamantly and said you cannot disturb wetlands to put in a stream bank restoration project, which brings us to my report tonight. So these areas of green you see are the areas of the stream, which is within the park, which are all considered wetlands. There's one spot in the center that is not considered wetlands. So what that does is that takes this stream out from being considered a stream bank for a stream bank restoration project. So in discussing this with Chris Peterson, we both felt that it's best to not pursue the project any further. So that's one of the reasons that you're going to discuss that. Second piece with this is also there's been discussion with I believe the SAC regarding the tree planting. They need to be aware of where the wetlands are too, because they should not be going to the wetlands to plant trees that aren't wetland tolerant.
Don't you think Stroud is aware of that?
Not unless they flag it themselves.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much detail Stroud has at this point of where they're looking to.
I don't know if they have this level of detail, but it should be sent to them.
Yeah, we need to let them know.
Yes. So that is part one of the discussion tonight, is that we're going to be removing the Westtown Way Barker Park Stream Bank Restoration from our project. Second piece.
So before we go to that, so the issues, other erosion issues on this stream within the park or these neighboring properties that might have been addressed with doing a project, that now are going to end up degrading the park over the next decade or so, whatever?
There's some areas where the stream bank is not in what the DEP would like to see as far as being vegetated right to the bank and done. So the wetlands are what they are.
Yeah.
And the stream may degrade next to the wetlands until the wetlands, until it gets to a point where it won't, because the wetlands are there. But we can't go in and do anything about it. The whole DEP's, that's what the DEP says.
How about that one area that's not wetlands? Are we going to do anything with that area, the small area in between?
Is that where like the bridge is?
No, the bridge is down here. The bridge, here's the parking lot. The bridge is right here.
So can we do something with that small area there? How big of an area is that?
It's about 55 to 60 feet.
Is that going to help us any?
You get 44.8 pounds per linear foot of stream. So I'll say it's 60 feet, you get 2,000 pounds of sediment out of it for probably a project that's going to cost you a whole lot more than it's worth. Just to do that little area.
So then what's the alternative?
So brings us to part two of my discussion tonight regarding the PRP plan. So our current PRP plan has a chart. I don't know if you can, I should do it the other way so you can see it better. So we have a table 10, which is our primary BMPs. And we had, when this was first proposed and then amended in December of 2022, we had 410,000 pounds of plant, a reduction in our planned projects. In those projects, Haggerty Lane is no longer a viable project. And the Westtown Sewage Treatment Plant buffer, we had proposed 3,000 pounds of reduction, but because of the final report and the design done by HRG, they actually achieved 30,000 pounds. That helped. Basin Road, I have X'd out here because we'll talk about that one. So in that chart, we had proposed 410,000, but because of our reductions, we're down to 256,000 pounds in that chart. Our secondary chart.
Well, that still included the West Town.
No, that's in the second. That's second. Yeah. Our secondary chart, we had 4 projects where we listed in the plan that proposed 164,000 pounds reduction that we could switch back and forth. Goose Creek and Westtown Way are not viable projects because of wetlands. So I walked Goose Creek with Chris Peterson. There's wetlands right along the creek.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, and there's still flagging out there from when they did the survey. From a few flags are still out there from the survey for the Albany. So we take those 2 off. That chart's left at 9,256 pounds. So if we do some, and I have some other updates for the MS4 as well. So our required reduction is 390,894 pounds a year is what our permit requires us to have. With our constructed BMPs, which are the Idlewild Basin, the Pine Valley Basin, the treatment plant buffer, and using the 2022 values from our street sweeping program, we've achieved 68,074 pounds of reduction a year so far. We had 25,000 pounds of sediment we removed from the street in 2022. I don't have the numbers yet for 23 because the permit cycle ends June 30th. Additionally, in 2023, we dumped for the 2022, but so far we found out we removed 27,000 pounds of sediment out of our pipes and inlets with our backdrop program so far. It was dumped in August of last year. We're going to dump another one at the end of the month, so we'll be able to have this together. Our Government Services Center Basin project right now, as proposed, is 15,691 pounds of reduction. We get the final report from Carol. After it's done, it may increase by their design. That gives us 42,851 more pounds. Add those together, you're up to 110,000. So if we add up to our totals with street sweeping, vacuuming, and all of the BMPs that we have done, I come up with 318,556 pounds, which means we're 72,000 pounds short.
72,000.
Yes.
Is there anything we can do with the Aldi property?
No, that's
It's
Goose
all
Creek.
wetlands.
It's all wetlands back
Yeah.
there. Right along this.
The northwest portion up there is not.
We walk the, in order to make a stream bank project viable, it needs to be 500 feet because you don't get enough. It's just too expensive.
You can't just do
those little patches?
You can't do 10, you can't do 20 or 30 feet, it's just too expensive.
All right, so then how do we get the 72?
So
There was a project there on Warren Road. I think you guys took a look at it.
this is Warren Road right here.
Okay.
So this is the area that we talked about where there's the pipe coming through Warren and out. So there's a stream in the back. This is Basin Road. Basin Road, we're looking to do the other end.
Right.
That's the end that had all the wetlands.
Mhm.
We have approximately 500 to 600 feet here that we think we can look at doing stream bank restoration in.
Because it's not wetlands.
We're going to find out. I have a $3,000 estimate from Carroll Engineering, which we're going to do under the current Basin Road contract to have them check the wetlands. There is wetlands back here when Chris and I walked it, but we think there's 500 to 600 feet of wetlands up to the corner here. If that's the case, we could look at doing stream bank restoration in there. If it's 500 feet, that's 44,000 pounds of reduction, approximately.
We're getting close. We're getting closer.
Getting closer, which brings us to the third piece of this puzzle. We're going to need to look at amending and revising our PRP again to add another project or two to it and update it. Our permit is due to be issued this month. We have 5 more years to work on this.
Could we get an adjustment in the permit amount? You said 396,000 pounds is required for us to mitigate. I mean, can we get an adjustment in that number?
That number is based upon all the loading that's at DEP. There's this, I just pulled out this one page to show you. The reduction is based upon loading calculations between our 2 watersheds, between the Chesapeake Bay, allotment, allocation. There's a lot of math, science, engineering that goes into determining what our allocation is, and then what the loading is of how much percentage that we're allowed to release into certain watersheds. One watershed, I think we have 6 watersheds, I think we have 2%. So that's where the reduction of this coming based upon how dense we are and how.
Can you scroll up to that first chart again?
This one?
Yeah, what's the 198, the West Town? That's the one we were just talking about?
West Town Road.
Yeah, so where's that? Is it the government building?
There's a stream around the government services center building.
Okay, so.
So you're still assuming we're going to do that in these numbers?
Yes, that's still assume we're going to look at that after we finish the basic.
That's not included in the numbers that you.
Yes, it is. That's included in it. That's the 198,000 gets you, that's how you get to the
Okay.
318.
It's like the biggest chunk of the whole thing.
Yes, that's half of our program.
But we don't think that's wetlands.
We don't think that's wetlands right now, no. I haven't walked the whole stream, but based on what I've seen, I don't think it's still a pretty viable project.
So when you say we have 5 years to work on this, you're talking about coming up with other projects for our next MS4 application, right?
Yes. Yes. So we have 5 years to discuss it, 5 years to implement it. The earlier we implement it, the earlier we can start showing more progress towards it. Because everything that I've talked to with people at DEP and people working in these programs is as long as you're showing DEP progress, and there is a 5-year report that I have to submit this year that says this is what we've done, this is what we haven't done, and why, and this is the progress we're making. So we need to show progress, and we need to show that progress again as we move forward. So the sooner we can get the PRP plan updated, the sooner we can start. And then maybe we'll have to put together some ideas of what we think. And then maybe we'll have to look at maybe partner with some private property owners for potential streams. Chris and I talked about this one project that could be viable if it comes along is the grant we applied for on Ashbridge for demolishing that house in the basin. If we get that grant, we can make that basin into a feature that we could get some credit for this for.
This might be a stupid question, but would the project on Montgomery Avenue have any effect on this?
The Montgomery Avenue project is to allow floodwaters to pass through.
And that's purely infrastructure.
Yes, it's purely just to allow water to go through.
So is that wetlands?
You can disturb anything within 25 feet of a road to clean out a crossing, including wetlands.
Okay, so if we wanted to do a project as far as like.
Yeah, so that's why we looked at this. We looked at this because it's the upper end.
Okay.
Right next to that's private. I didn't look at the private property. I looked at our property at the headwaters of that, which is the other end.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to look at our own property than the first property owners.
The new piece of basin, the Basin Road project, is that all township property or is
Yes.
some of that private property?
So while Brian's queuing that up, So Basin Road kind of came to us from a complaint that we received and a concern, and then as we evaluated it further, that's where it kind of looks like a viable project as we met internally about it. And yes, it's all one, I believe it's a 20-acre property in the center of that
Yeah.
development.
This is the piece of property right here, called to me. It's 20.2 acres that you own. It's all West Goshen Township. And our initial project was down in this area. We're looking to do this whole stream down here, and it turned out there's too many wetlands. We're looking to do it right up in here now.
Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a project here at one point and like the DEP classified it as a dam?
Yes, that structure is right here's the berm. It was actually built, it's on the plans, you can see it on the plans, they built it as a stormwater basin. And the idea was to renovate it, but DEP is considering it a dam now. Years ago, 60s and 70s, probably 50s and earlier, a lot of times you would just build a berm in it and strength above your property to let it be the stormwater control. They actually dammed streams back in the day without dam permits. And now the DEP is considering it a dam, so we're not allowed, that's why that grant was returned.
This concern the property owner had up at Warren Road, is it related to conditions on the township property, or is it to do with?
It's all on the township property.
It's our issue that's causing the problems for that property owner, or
It's
is
that
it?
draining problem.
Well, some of it, that's part of it, because there's this, this shows the stream coming up. This is where actually the channel comes out of the back of the property. The stream is actually down here. There's a stream channel that feeds it from over here. So we're going to do both that channel and as much as this main channel of the stream as we can.
Okay, but if we created a wetlands there because it's not draining properly?
No. And the wetlands are approximately here. There's a large patch of skunk cabbage right here. This is about where we feel they started, but like I said, Chris, I only know of 2 plants that I can identify. I'm not a land scientist, so that's why they're going to flag it where they feel it starts, and then we'll go from there to evaluate if it can go further. Minimum, we're going to clean it out, but we're hoping we can clean it out and make it a.
So if this fails because of whatever reason, wetlands or whatever else, we're now on to plan C in terms of we've exhausted township government entity properties, and we're going to have to talk to private property owners about projects on
Or
that.
come up with alternative BMPs, and that's where I need to deal with HRG for that. The plan was done by HRG. My recommendation is that we modify and we stay with HRG because they have all the data and all the calculations and everything.
Yeah, I agree. So when are you going to go out with Chris to look at that?
This?
Yeah.
Already have. I've already walked it with Chris. The $3,000 is what the scientist out there.
Okay, the wetland scientist got it.
Yes. Chris met with myself, Mark, Bertolami, and Doreen to make sure we knew what they were. We wanted to see it to understand what was involved.
But now we just need to make sure that it's not wetlands.
Yes.
But you've already got the approved monies from the original
Yes.
intention.
So we're just going to apply to that contract for now, and then if we have to modify that contract, then we're going to modify the proposal docs.
Okay.
So Brian and I discussed this today. The 2024 budget contained $51,600 for Basin Road for the design of the project. And so far we've spent $536.95.
To find out we couldn't do it where we thought, now we spent $3,000 to find out we can do something somewhere else with that Basin Road. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
But the point is, there's adequate fund availability in the
Yeah.
capital reserve fund for this.
Okay.
And if we don't address this, what are the consequences? What could DEP do to the township?
I don't know if I want to be the township that finds out.
Okay. I mean, from your experience.
I know one township was audited. It was, I think it was Manor Township, Lancaster County, and they had to spend several $100,000 in upgrades to their buildings and retrofitting stuff, plus had several $100,000 in fines to DEP to come into compliance. They're the only one that I know of.
That was an EPA audit.
Because this, the EPA.
They oversee this state program. Okay.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. We'll wait to hear from you on that. All right, moving on to item number, I'm sorry, was there any other questions?
Good stuff, I'm gonna give you a compliment. Good
On
use of
this.
public resources.
Okay, very good.
Can you get any credit for helping a developer of private lands like Grayson?
we can't take credit until they're done.
Ah,
That's one of the things, that's one of the things I have on my list to discuss
You got
with.
a big, long.
Well, that stream is on our property, but it goes through it goes into 2 dams. So
Yep.
it may not be in a situation where it can be restored because of how it.
That dam with that little boathouse is with the little pond.
Yeah, so we haven't talked about that. That's something to talk about,
Okay.
but it's private property still.
Okay. That's a good use of public resources. I'll vote for this one.
We don't really have a choice either.
Well, that's just, that's no complaints there.
Okay. All right, moving on to item number 8, which is the reports for May 2024 from Chief Carroll.
Thank you. Report from the police department for May of 2024, we responded to 2,329 calls for service. 44 of those were alarms, and one of those alarms was found to be valid. 64 accidents, 19 of which were reportable, and we drove a total of 22,124 miles. We performed extra traffic enforcement on Fernhill Road, Kelly Pike, and Kelly's Mill Road, Rosary Lane, Spruce Avenue, and Goshen Road, Snyder Avenue, North 5 Points, and North New Street. We performed our normal monthly trainings. In addition to that, we had completed our spring range training for everyone in the department. Officer DeLeon went to crisis intervention training. Officer Byrne attended field training officer training. Sergeant Sedlak attended the FBI LEADA, which is a leadership course. And myself and Sergeant Liss attended the FBI retrainer for the year. The alarms, over 44 alarms, one of which was the 6th offense for that specific person, which is the highest value fine. One was the 5th, and 4 were the 4th, which is like the mid-range fines. The total was $2,550 in alarm fines. We had 26 assists to other departments for a total of almost 15 hours, and we received 20 assists from other departments. So that's the report from the police department. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Does anyone have any questions for the chief?
On the alarms, did they pay up the violations of 5 and 6? Are they paying?
I don't know. Generally speaking, yes. I have one I have to discuss with Kristen this week, but generally speaking, most people.
They just continue to pay them.
I just had a question about a suicide. Westchester University Police Department. This is on.
I don't know what you're looking at, so.
Is this an assist?
I believe it's an assist.
Assist to others?
Yeah, where it says 20 total assist from 5/28/2024.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about. Specifically, I don't know if that was an action, well, it should be. I don't know, I can follow up on that and get back to what's going on.
And there's another one, 2 from the bottom of the page.
That's the one I was looking at, I'm sorry.
There's one on there's 2 on 5/28, fortunately. One was assist to the West Down East Goshen Police Department.
I'm still looking for the first one.
First one's middle of the page.
Yeah, middle of the page.
528.
Oh, I see it.
They're both 528.
So that's the same incident.
Oh, okay. Just wondering.
What is the status of the 2 Patricks who were recently?
So they both completed their field officer training portions. Now they're out serving the community on their own.
So they're officially past their probation process?
No, probation last year, they're past their field training portion.
And what is your, we had our board liaison meeting today. Can you tell us what your plan is about the vehicles? Because with the additional new hire, there was a question about maybe.
Yes, so we spoke, when we were talking about adding an officer, I think we spoke about it last year. A question came up at the meeting about will we require another vehicle? Depending on how the officers work, it was possible we intended, instead of asking the board in the middle of the year to buy another vehicle, to keep one of the ones we were going to sell. So now we're at the point where the Patricks are released, and we would like to keep one of the patrol vehicles that we were going to sell.
I have a question for you, Chief. So, obviously, there's been quite a lot of news about incidents at the large events such as carnivals, etc. And I know I've spoken with you that you're included into the upcoming Goshen Fair. Can you just describe what is planned in terms of secure police support and security for that event, and
of the process from here?
So most of the security for the event will be headed by West County Goshen. We are in contact with them. They have not gotten to the point to lay out a specific plan yet, but they will. But for West Goshen, at a minimum, we will have extra officers working just to protect the West Goshen side of the lane during the fair. But I would expect that a plan, when the final plan is formulated, that we will be assisting with the fair itself.
And that extra cost would be part of, would that be billed to the fire company who's running the event, or do we absorb it?
It would be billed to West County Goshen, who I assume would bill the fire.
So at this time, you have 2 officers who are planning to have a presence there at the fair at this time?
I didn't say 2. I don't know what it's going to be. The plan is still to be developed, but I expect it will be some.
All right, thank you very much.
This is on another, not for the police chief, but for the fire department. Just looking at the report here from Westchester Fire Department. This is from the beginning of this year till the end of May, or actually June 2nd. There were a total of 69 false alarms that they responded to. And of those 69 false alarms, 19 of them that I counted were to 500 West Rosedale Avenue, which is in Cambridge Hall Apartments. So I don't know what can be done there, or needs to be done there, but you know, it certainly is an issue. You know, quite a few of the fire alarms that are coming through, the false alarms, are going to that one location.
I mean, it's.
I will tell you last week we had an AFA at the apartment complex at the Point. And it was actually a water flow alarm, and actually it was a fire in the closet with a sprinkler put out. So all these AFAs aren't necessarily false alarms. And like the police department, we need to respond to them appropriately. And
Is an AFA an active fire alarm, or
it's an automatic fire alarm.
Automatic,
Yes.
Yeah, I'm certainly not suggesting them to respond. There's almost like the crying wolf effect, though, kind of kicks in after a certain while.
There certainly are. There's a lot of frequent flyers like Cambridge Hall, and
Is that just because of the density? I mean, there's just so many people living there, so it's obviously.
And it's the alarm systems.
Yeah.
Okay, the older alarm systems give us problems.
So
And
then.
honestly, we're expected to reset the alarms before we leave, and that's not really one of our jobs, but we do it for the.
But through our inspection process, do we require that they have the most up-to-date alarm system? Well, an up-to-date alarm system?
No.
Why?
A lot of it's just the location of the fire alarms, wherever, you know, where they cook. So, you know, you burn the bacon.
They're required to have operable smoke detectors and alarms, but they're not required, to the best of my knowledge, they're not required to like upgrade the system or anything.
So they could just be
It
really
would-
sensitive alarms that just go off?
So we go to South Mallory Street, it'll be a streak of, you know, every day for a week, and then it gets quiet again, and then a month later, it's every day for a week. You know,
I'm sure
we
you
don't
said-
like one of those things either, believe me.
Yeah, no.
And Andrea Testa, she monitors them and she sends out fine notices, and then the funds get distributed to the responding agencies accordingly.
Could you clarify that? I mean, suppose a particular apartment has a false alarm, but then the next door apartment has a false alarm. Does the billing go to Cambridge Hall Management, or does it go to a specific tenant?
I believe it goes to the property owner, so it would be the Cambridge Hall Management. I believe so.
Yes.
Because they would ultimately be the ones that are, the property's owner is ultimately the ones that is responsible. Now, if they then turn around and then choose to pass that cost on to the tenant, that would be their choice. But I can't say if that occurs.
It's their alarm system.
Correct.
They own it. So
Correct.
Yeah.
Just remind me that the whole temporary housing issue with Westchester University is Cambridge Hall privately owned, or is it public?
Yes. It is.
But wasn't that one of the properties they mentioned was going to be renovated? for
Yes.
students?
No, I thought that was the College Arms. The university does
Yeah,
not.
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, the university does not own Cambridge Hall. A number of students live there.
Cambridge
They
Hall is
don't-
where we're talking about connecting the sidewalk.
Yeah, okay. So College Arms is the one on High Street?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, that's the one they went to. All right, thank you.
One other comment, I mean, it's difficult it is to go to all these automatic alarms. You know, I did a lot of this in the 70s, and we went to these fires, there were fires then, because it was cooking, unattended cooking, and it got out of hand, and all of a sudden the kitchen's on fire, the apartment's on fire. It has cut down the number of fires we go to by unbelievable amount. We just don't go to fires. I don't say we don't go, we don't have many fires. So things like smoke detector systems, CO detectors, sprinkler systems, are all worthwhile life-saving places, and they really do well.
It's amazing that the sprinkler put the fire out. It's incredible. Yes, Dr. White.
Yeah, and actually, that's another, just a sidebar here. The state enacted sprinklers in their building construction policy back about 10 years ago. They just passed the law, and builders were required to put it in single-family dwellings, apartments, across the board. The Builders Association got involved because they said it cost them money, and it was withdrawn. A year later, it was gone. And it's been factually proven in the counties, like in Maryland, that have sprinkler systems, that there's no fire death. Okay, it's gone away. And so
it's at the state level?
Yes, that was at the state
Yeah.
level. They enacted it in the building code, and then the builders fought it because it was uncompetitive. You know, what it costs $1 a square foot, put a sprinkler system in when they have new housing.
Yeah.
So that's just some of the things that happen at a little higher level.
Oh my goodness.
But sprinklers are real low with money.
I don't understand that yet. Dr. White.
Yes, I have a question to the chief and to the board. When it comes to residents and businesses having burglar alarms or fire alarms that are central station reported, they're connected right to, maybe to the township or to a service. So that's good, but then a lot of people, and myself included here at the office, are thinking of going to a phone service that uses internet. Now they're telling us that you can't have central station reported alarms using internet phone line. Is that a problem?
Who's telling you that? I don't know
About
if that's true.
Verizon?
Yeah, I don't think that's true.
So if a business or a resident switches their phone service from regular phone service to internet phone service?
We have internet phone service here, and we get $5 here.
Yep.
So you can still have central station reporting burglar, police, and fire, even with internet phone service?
Yes. I was actually have that, I was asked to set it up as part of my internet phone service, or decline it. It's like confirming the address and a couple other things, because obviously it's not it's an IP address now, not a physical address, so you have to link it
But
together.
Verizon is, I have two phone lines that they're telling me I have to keep one regular phone service for the fire alarm.
Interesting.
So
I know we still have, when we switched over, when the town building switched over to the voice over IP, I know we do still have some older, like old style phone lines, but I think those are all connected to our pump stations. I don't think it has anything to do with this building here.
Okay, thank you, Dr. White. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 9, which is the Board of Supervisors announcements. I'm going to start on my left with Mr. Woolman. Do you have any announcements?
I do. May 23rd, I attended the Good Fellowship Community Day. May 23rd, attended the Historic Commission meeting. May 30th, I attended the Chestnut Grove Cemetery tour. June 6th, toured Haven Behavioral Health Hospital and Office Center. June 13th, participated in the West Goshen Democrats listening session on hate speech. That's everything.
All right, thank you very much. How are you, Ms. Any announcements?
Yes. May 23rd, attended the Good Fellowship anniversary. June 13th, I participated in the hate speech panel in the town dealing with that topic. And then on the 18th, we had our monthly meeting with the police. June 20th, we'll have our pipeline exercise. June 24th, I will have the tour of the mental health sites of the country for the last one. And I also, there have been 2 meetings held. The first one was on June 12th regarding House Bill 2407, which is in Harrisburg with the Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee hearing. At the hearing, the Office of Fire Commissioners presented a proposal to allocate $30 million in proposed funding in next year's budget. And then John, through Chris Prielli, just sent out the second link for the second meeting, which was today, the second hearing, I should say, for House Bill 2407 to reauthorize and expand the grant programs. So it's still in the hearing. I think there's going to be at least one more hearing. That was about an hour today. They discussed that. The two people that were as part of the hearing was Gary Waters, who's the president of the Ambulance Association of Pennsylvania. He's been involved for 40 years now with the EMS and fire. And Jerry Ozog, who's also been involved with the fire. He was actually some of our coalitions. He's spoken already. So there have been two really good advocates for the money for the fire and EMS. So it was a good discussion today, and that was about an hour. That's it.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Hellman.
On Thursday, May 23rd, I attended the Good Fellowship Ambulance Open House along with Dean and Nate. Then Monday, June the 3rd, attended the virtual conference on Chester County housing affordability. It was hosted by the Chester County Commission, which was very informative, and also sober too. On Thursday, June the 6th, I had a meeting with the director of the Haven Behavioral Hospital and toured the facility along with several of the other supervisors. On Tuesday, June the 11th, attended a land planning committee session with Gilmore Associates. We are beginning the process of reviewing and rewriting of the township zoning ordinances. It promises to be a long-term project, maybe a year and a half or maybe even longer. On Thursday, June the 13th, I participated in a panel discussion with the elected officials on the issue of hate speech in our area and ways to combat it. And then on Tuesday, today, June the 18th, we had our monthly liaison meeting with the chief of police and captain.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Walsh.
Yeah, so I also participated on June the 6th in the tour of the Haven Behavioral Health Facility located near the Chester County Hospital. It's actually in Westchester Borough, but borders right up to West Goshen. It's a pretty impressive facility. It's still obviously in its infancy. In talking with the director there are obviously ways of working between the behavioral health facility, the hospital, the EMS providers, and the police are going to be critical to its long-term success, and it was exciting to hear what we believe hopefully will be a way of working that will better serve the community and folks who have suffered from these elements as we go forward. So look forward to, over time, hearing of a successful new way of working there, hopefully. And then today, I attended the solar array project kickoff meeting with TerraSol, and we went over a variety of typical project items, and it was led by Keystone Engineering. That's my report.
Very good. Many of the other things, I won't repeat them. I know that our township manager prepared some announcements, so I'm actually going to move on to item number 10, which is the township manager's announcements. Mr. Bayshore.
Yes, Madam Chair. So I prepared some announcements that were provided to the board. I'm going to hit some of the high points since it's fairly lengthy. So I'm going to start with our e-newsletter. Will go out, scheduled to go out this Friday, June 21st. And as a reminder to everyone, the township administrative offices will be closed tomorrow, June 19th, in recognition of the Juneteenth holiday. Information is posted on the township website about that. We will have our emergency preparedness tabletop exercise on Thursday, June 20th. In line with the township's testing policy, and an after-action report will be provided by the county. We did post information on the township website, just alerting people that there's going to be a test. So if you're signed up to receive Blackboard and to receive Blackboard Connect notifications, you'll receive a test notification, but it is only a test.
And that's on the website?
That is on the
So
website.
if they go to the website, it's one of those pop-up things, or is it going to have an alert at the top?
It's right at the top of the website.
So that's going to be township-wide? We will receive notice.
This is not specific to the pipeline. This is a different kind of event, so this will be township-wide. Our pension advisor transition is underway and actually should be completed by the end of this week, if not early next week. Our finance director, Christine Ruffy, is going to do a reconciliation of all the funds once the transfer is finished. We worked through everything with the service agreement through Scott Blissman's office, and they've made all the requested changes, and those have been incorporated. We signed all the necessary transfer paperwork on June 5th, and we sent the advisory service termination letters to Vanguard on June 11th. And we also met with PNC today to go over their web portal, so we're going to be able to do a a lot of the transactions on an ACH or web-based service as opposed to hard checks going forward. So
That's good improvement.
Yeah.
Sending checks in the mail is not the way to send money.
there are some hurdles we're going to have to overcome, but that is where we're going to probably trend. We've signed all the plans for 315 Powell Lane. Brian, I don't believe those have been recorded yet. We're still waiting for those to be recorded.
Kristen's office has them.
So those have not been recorded yet.
Which is the footpath to Coopersmith Park.
Correct. And then there will the closing will happen 30. We're still waiting for some information from the existing property owner's mortgage company, and once that is finalized, then settlement will happen 30 days after that.
So there's nothing left on our end that needs to be done? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Nope. The Brewbakers came in and signed the plans about 2 weeks ago, I'm going to say. But everything's been signed. Brandywine Parkway, they are going to be coming before the board at the July 16th meeting. This was based on an internal staff meeting that occurred regarding the township potentially vacating Brandywine Parkway. So they're going to come to the July 16th meeting to discuss that possibility. That would then revert it back to private ownership. And we were approached about that by the property owned by Teva Pharmaceutical for security purposes, and the individuals involved in that meeting thought it might be a worthwhile thing for the board to consider. Ultimately, that decision rests with the board.
Any downsides for us to do that?
Based on conversations with Brian and with everyone, we don't see a downside to it.
Besides losing some of the liquid fuels allocation, but that's minimal.
It's about $1,600 out of a $700,000 allocation. Right now, it's a cul-de-sac road that really doesn't go
Doesn't serve any other business or anything, does it, that road? So only type of properties down there.
correct. But they will come before the board on July 16th. We had our initial kickoff meeting with Verizon for the franchise fee agreement renewal. That was yesterday. So the Cohen Law Group is actively working on that. There were actually more than 20 municipalities, or 27 municipalities that are participating in that renewal. So we will be billed at the lowest rate that was outlined on that schedule that was approved by the board on January 2nd. And I believe the first or second payment was recently issued. And then the last thing I'm going to hit on is our paving. Last two items I'm going to hit on has to do with our streets department. Our paving program was completed on June 13th, and Mark is very satisfied with the results. He's going to review the final numbers, but he thinks that it's going to come in under budget, and there was no base repair needed as part of the project. And overall, I'd say everything went fairly smoothly. And then finally, Chris Peterson's office has completed the base plan for Fresh Meadows. That's been provided to Brian and to Mark Bertolami. So far, the streets department has replaced 300 feet of CMP in that development. So they're continuing to move along.
Chris, I have a question back on paving. Is Goshen Road a state road or a township road?
It is a state road.
Yeah, I noticed that there's a huge pothole close to 100 there. It's got, looks like someone's marked out a repair that's going to be done. Do we have any information from that?
That would most likely be PennDOT. But as we learned last week, PennDOT doesn't normally tell us when they're going to be shutting down roads in our jurisdiction.
Yeah, that's a critical road right now because it's right near the bridge repair and everything else. So some closure of that road might mess some people up.
I'm not aware of anything. I can check with Mark on Thursday to see if he's been notified. Chief, are you aware that Sergeant Chrysler been notified of anything?
Not that I'm aware, but I don't know if that end of Goshen Road is a state road. Doesn't it switch at Marshall?
I thought it was all a state road.
It could be, but I'm not positive that that part is.
The repair would be done during the day.
In any event, I can check it.
And the bridge closures are at night, overnight.
It's just one more mess in that area.
And it would just be a lane closure or whether it's going to be just a patch repair.
It looks like a patch repair. It's a bad pothole there.
Are they finished on Fern Hill Road? That whole thing is done, right?
As far as I know.
They just striped it today.
So they chipped it. It sits for a couple of weeks to let it set. Then they sweep it. Then they do what's called a fog seal, which makes it turn black and makes it more smooth. And then they striped it. Did a whole bunch of it out all over the county. A lot of that.
part of Goshen Road in the borough?
Yeah, I've split it, yes.
Okay, yeah, so Goshen Road east of the North Hill community is state-owned.
East of North
East
Hill,
of
yes,
North Hill, yeah.
but west is where the pothole is, I believe it's on that Pottstown Pike, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then would that be in the borough or would that be in
So
our
depends on what
jurisdiction?
side the road's on, so I'll have to check.
It's on the borough side.
Yeah, it's on
The
the borough side.
borough's the borough. The borough's turned into it.
So is that all for your announcements then?
Yes, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Just a quick question. What's the, can you give us an update on the Rosedale Avenue sidewalk project?
So we received a few questions from DCED. We've provided some of the information they were looking for. I'm still waiting for the nonprofit status from the Hicksite Cemetery. We had to show that the entities that will be maintaining it are nonprofit. So we got information from the church, and we're waiting for from the cemetery owners to be able to provide that. We probably won't hear about the results of that grant application until the fall.
I just have a question about the issue that arose last weekend, the yard-waste pickup that was postponed until this Saturday.
Yes.
The information says because there was closure at the Lanchester landfill. Is that yard waste just landfill, or is there a facility at Lanchester to
They compost it.
Okay, so it's just that the actual facility was closed, not that it's going to be landfill.
That's my understanding.
Thank you.
It's all at the same
Yeah,
location.
they have a pretty extensive composting program right now. Any other questions for Chris? No? Okay, we're gonna move on then.
Just one thing, our grant application for the second phase of improvements for West Goshen Community Park was submitted on May 30th. So that may be another one that we hear about. And the application was for $250,000, which is the match of it, which is the maximum under the program.
That's good news. Okay.
On the energy assessment that was done by, I believe by PICO, did they come up with any suggestions that we can pursue?
As far as I know, it was all related to lighting, and the information on the incentive programs was provided to Mike Kakava.
Is there any grant opportunity out there that might be able to help us to mitigate any costs associated with any of the suggestions?
As far as I know, related to lighting, it would only be associated with the incentive programs through PICO, which provide a rebate on that cost. However, I am going to do a DEP webinar on the MORE program, which I think is being funded through, I don't think it's ARPA, I think it's funded through one of the other acts, so I'm going to be doing that on the 25th, so we may find out more.
Okay, very good.
Did we find out who owns the transformer here, the solar?
Yes, it's PICO.
Oh, PICO owns it, good, so that's our cost.
Yep.
Good.
Chris, this just reminded me, we had that project to replace the lighting in the Public Works building. Is that complete yet?
Yes, it is.
All right, good.
And the lights, Mike sent me pictures of the old lights compared to the new lights, and the new lights are like a quarter of the size of what we took out. And he says they're working very well.
Nice. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Oh, yeah.
Did we have a kickoff meeting for the solar system yet?
Yes, that was today.
Was that?
I attended the meeting.
Everything,
And how did that go?
yes, everything went well.
They have a timeline about installation?
Well, they have to develop that based on availability of domestic source panels, which is unclear at the moment because that production is probably not going to start until first quarter of next year. So the remainder of this year is the design, the submission to PICO for the interconnection, lobbying PICO to get the maximum size system we can and not be downgraded because of the various rules and regs that PICO has, and then hopefully an installation they had a March, April installation with in operation kind of June.
And one of the things we're still waiting on is the grant application through PEA that was submitted to EPA, which we may hear about as early as July. So
Really?
that's what Grace Hancock from PEA told me.
Wow.
Well, since the topic came up, I was going to ask after the meeting, is the contract price finalized? I know that was still something that was up in the air.
Yeah, the contract price is based on PICO agreeing to our full system design. Of course, if they say you cannot connect that load into the system, then we have to have a revision.
So the price is locked, because I remember it was very, economical prices, it's still got
The price is locked with a change order for domestic source panels, depending on what
Okay,
that
so
number
that's
is.
clear. Okay, 20 cents a watt.
Yeah.
Okay.
So have they found a subcontractor that would meet the responsible contractor requirements?
I think they're still working through that with Kirsten. It wasn't clear to me whether they believe that their preferred existing contract can meet requirements. They do a couple of things where they need to go to a different one, but they had a list that they could use. They were still trying to continue with their preferred subcontractor and their own team to install.
And they're still going with production guarantee for a given size, they're going with production guarantee?
Yeah, for whether the size is determined by PECO, fortunately, they will then guarantee it based on the power
So you
source.
guys are getting a bargain, we're getting a bargain for the student case.
My biggest concern on this project is that the size of the system is downgraded by PECO, but we'll have to work through that.
So like we can back feed into the system, it's the bottom line.
I mean, we have an opportunity with that roof space to get up to 20% over 20% of the electric demand of the whole complex. If it's downgraded by PECO, obviously that falls down substantially. It seems crazy to me that that would be the case given the opportunity that we have.
Well, I've done jobs where my client paid to upgrade part of the distribution system, like you know, for like 50, 100 kilowatt systems, I know they're a lot bigger, we put new transformers on poles and split the cost with PECO. So.
Well, we have various ways of trying to get what we want from PECO, so
okay.
we're going to keep working.
Just one last question, the North Hill Stormwater Improvement Project. We have a timeline on when we anticipated bid date we can get started on this?
We're still finalizing the plans. We've gotten information from several of the property owners, including surveys and plan documents that have all been forwarded to Chris Peterson. And I believe our current contract is a 3-year contract, I believe. So there is time on that grant.
I mean, we're still on track. Basically, we did not expect that work to be done until spring of 25, if I remember right. It was designed to resolve all these issues about the surveys and the property lines and all the easements, and get all that nailed down. There's quite a lot of complexity there. In parallel with the design, that would then go out to bid towards the end of the year to work in the early part of 25.
And as I said, the property owners have been very helpful. They provided a number of plans to Brian, which he's in turn provided to Chris Peterson to address some of the deed issues.
They were looking into the deeds or something?
The deeds wouldn't close, so they didn't go back to the starting point. So we were looking for the original subdivision plans to help put on the base plan to help close those, and a lot of the plans have.
Don't exist. The original subdivision plans were too old, they just don't exist. And then I was able to get a couple of property owners that paid to have their property surveyed and pinned. They gave me copies of their survey. That was helpful. So I didn't scan with that. I was able to get copies of, but this is going to be an ongoing problem over in that development. So not saying the plans don't exist. The plans don't exist electronically. So you have to physically
And
go
not
to
just
recorded
that
deeds.
development, I know that other developments
Yes,
of the same age.
you
are
have to go to
involved
the
in same
recorded
way.
deeds by hand and go through the files and try to find them out. You can't go online and just find electronic copies. You're too old. So they're still working through their due diligence to get the property lines all out because we know where they're at and get to the easements and the right people.
Exactly. Okay. Moving on to item number 11, which is the Township Engineer's announcement and Greystone update. Mr. Polakowski.
I just got a couple things tonight. I'll start quick with Greystone. Greystone Phase 6, the review is done. The letter will be going on Thursday. A few comments, not a lot. So that is in progress. Punch list that I issued last year, I was told that I should be seeing a response to them, but I haven't seen anything yet from the developers. So I don't know. Driving through, I can see some stuff was done and some stuff wasn't, because I know what that punch list said. I just don't know where they stand with those punch lists.
This is the punch list for the pod or
Aaron.
Okay.
I can see it by driving right down the road, so I can tell if it's done or not. I know they're working on the punch list, the punch painting that I did on the curb lines and sidewalks for the Phase 1 singles. That has been done. I've been working with them to do a punch on the Frost Lane twins. That has yet to be scheduled with NB Homes. I don't know if I explained in the past, but RLD installs the curbs and sidewalks when they do the road. You turn it over to NV. NV has to fix it and turn it back over to RLD complete. So NV requests the punch list for the curbs and sidewalks before they give them back to RLD to finish the project.
Why is it done that way?
Because if NB damages it, building the house, it's their responsibility to fix it. Because curbs and sidewalks are in up front before you build the house.
Just to comment on that, I know I made the same comment at a previous meeting. I was on Aram Avenue not too long ago, and a large construction dump vehicle mounted that curve on Aram Avenue to go to where they're currently building, and damage will continue to happen as long as that infrastructure work continues.
Sticking with Greystone, I was informed by the HOA management company that the HOA, which is Greystone HOA, for the singles, twins, and towns, they're going to be at 75% at the end of this month. They're going to be doing their transition and be a homeowner board by September. They're going to be by a full homeowner board with no development control by September. So that piece is moving along, getting closer to 75% than it would be tonight. Last update I have for stormwater is the Government Services Center Basin project is moving along. I do have a draft set of plans from Chris Peterson to review. I'm waiting on he is awaiting the final landscape plan from the landscape architect which is the biggest portion of redoing the basin is what the plannings and all that are. Once I sign off on the draft, then we have to send it to the county for their review. Once they sign off on it, then we can put the package together. So that's still in progress, and just hopefully I'll have it to the county in July, and then hopefully we get that back fairly quickly because I know their engineer will review it, and then we can get a bid by the end of the summer. And that's all I have for tonight. If there's any questions for me? Oh, and the Route 3 project is supposed to get started.
You're talking about
The corridor safety project.
Yes, okay.
Is it the Pendle?
Well, they've been out there doing a bunch of, I guess, preliminary
Yes.
stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
So the two biggest pushes of that are the new traffic light at 202, closing and reconfiguring some crossings. But most of it's going to be narrowing, painting, striping.
You said that's going to begin soon, like the actual?
It's already started, but they started doing some of the painting work. But as far as
Right.
the road closures and the big work for the light, I'm not sure when that's going to take place.
Okay.
For that project, I requested PennDOT to at least look at the, I guess it would be heading east on Route 3, turning into Chatwood, making a left where the ball field is, to put a light there. Do you know if they even considered that or looked at it? When they were here at the last meeting 2 years ago?
Are you talking about where the flashing beacon is currently?
No, I don't think there's a flashing light there.
There is.
Oh, is there? Is it flashing?
Yeah,
Are you talking about South Concord?
Yes, South Concord,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah.
They're not going to put a light there if they're going to put a light at 202.
Yeah,
They said they were going to consider it.
The flashing beacon, from what I understand, the flashing beacon is, the flashing beacon is going to go away, and there's going to be a full signal at the ramp off of 202.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
You got a three-way signal at
But
202.
you still have people turning in the left South Concord Road, and they're in the middle of the road, there's no way to even pull over. They're literally almost just a pipe trying to make a left on South
Oh, I
Concord.
know, it's my daily struggle.
But, so that's not going to solve the problem by taking the flash off.
Well, in theory, Brian can correct me if I'm wrong, if they put up a full signal head, if it stops, then it should stop certain traffic.
Yeah, because the problem is that you have people flying up Westchester Pike, going
Right.
toward
Heading
Westchester.
east.
And,
Or west. heading
right, and
west.
it's kind of a hill, so they don't even
They
see a
don't
lot of
see
the
it.
times people at
Yeah.
the top turning left, and so they come up and
And
almost
you're in
get
the-
rear-ended many times.
I know, and you're in the
Yeah.
middle of the road, so I guess.
But I think that's-
How far back does the single lane go, Ryan? Do you know?
How far back?
How far east does it take?
I don't have the plans. I don't know.
It might be around there where that, hopefully because of the main, but I don't know.
It's the off-ramp to 202.
That's where it's needles.
Yeah, that's where it's going to go, you know, when you're making
And
a
then-
left toward the borough.
And then you have two ball fields back there, which are populated a lot. So there's a lot of traffic going down South
If they go
Concord.
single lane there, there's room for a turning lane. I don't know if they're planning on it.
That might be part of it. That might be part of the project. I don't know. I don't know what the
I
details.
know, yeah, at least if they have a turning with something, you're just sitting there waiting to be hit. Okay, so we don't know if they considered that.
I was
Look at the plan,
I
they
know.
was on the plans, if you really want to know, look at the plan, and that'll be your answer.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Brian. Chris, you're going to handle the zoning announcements
Yes.
tonight, is that right? Item number 12, the zoning officer's announcements.
Yes, Madam Chair. So Shelby provided a report that's in the packet to the board. I'll hit a few of the high points there. The zoning hearing board met on May 29th and heard the application for 328 West Town Road, which was the key of Westchester for the freestanding monument sign. The hearing is closed and the decision will be rendered at their meeting on June 24th. Regarding the application at 523 Cedar Lane, that was withdrawn by the applicant on May 22nd. We did refund a portion of the money that had been spent on their application. It was less the advertising cost. So we reduced the refund by the advertising cost. And he was fine with that. The applications before the board this evening, the application at 909 Paley Pike for West Goshen Shopping Center will be heard on June 24th in front of the zoning hearing board, and the application for 20 Ellis Lane will be heard on July 22nd in front of the zoning hearing board. So once we have a determination from them, we'll advise the board on when the decision is rendered. And then just a reminder to the board at the July 16th meeting, there will be a conditional use hearing for Merrill Gardens at 1201 Ward Avenue. They filed an application to amend their conditional use decision in order that was issued on January 14th, 2015, in order to amend condition number 5 to increase it from 150 units to 154 units. That was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their meeting on June 11th, and they did not have any recommended conditions for the board to consider.
Okay. I'm confused about that application. In 2015?
They received conditional use approval for the facility in 2015, and it limited them to 150 units, and they're seeking to add 4 new units. So what they have to do is they have to amend the decision that was issued previously.
Okay.
They're looking to renovate the inside of the building. They figured out, based on the new operator has determined there's too much common space, that the residents are spreading out too much, they're not interacting with each other. So they would like to put in more units and make have four more units, and take out 2 areas or a couple areas of open up.
Community space. Worried about. Let's do 4 more units.
That's the presentation you planning.
And Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is no exterior construction associated with that application.
Oh, okay.
So there's no land development associated. It is strictly an amendment of condition number 5 of the original decision.
Okay.
And the Wawa, the conditional use for the Wawa, is that still being held on the 29th of July?
I do not know.
That's TBD.
And
The
then
Westchester University Temporary Housing.
that is scheduled, so that's slated for July 24th. That will go before the Planning Commission at their meeting on July 9th.
Okay. Anything else?
No,
Anything
Madam
you
Chair.
wanted to highlight? Okay. There is one, and I know I'm sort of breaking from our agenda here, there is one item that I missed in this meeting, and that's, I want to go back to our discussion on number 5, which was the amendment to prohibit the distribution of polystyrene. We did receive an email from a resident who wanted to include her thoughts on that in the meeting minutes. And so those will be, her email will be included in the meeting minutes from this meeting, per that issue. So I apologize for that oversight. Moving on to item number 13, which is the approval of the Board of Supervisors meeting minutes of May 22nd, 2024. Does the board have any major corrections, changes to the meeting minutes from May 22nd?
I have one, actually.
Okay.
It's on page 6 at the top. It's the sentence that starts, Mr. Walsh noted. Chris, are you there? Okay. It should, I apologize because I probably confused the issue and what I said. I just want to get this worded, I believe, the correct way. So it should be that Mr. Walsh noted that all employee pay is disbursed from the same account in TD Bank. It's not to say that it all comes from the general fund, but that employee pay is disbursed from a single account. That was the only correction.
All right, any other corrections to the minutes?
Yeah, I have a couple on page 1. In the paragraph beginning with Margie Short, resident of West Goshen Township stated that as December 31st, 2023, special assessments on 128 parcels in the Greystone development, just so that's clear what we're talking about. And then continuing on, a couple sentences down, Ms. Schwartz stated that the residents I don't quite understand what's being said here. Ms. Wood stated that the residents who did not prepay collectively paid 1.7 million. Should that be stating, Ms. Wood stated the residents who did prepay collectively paid 1.7 million in 2023 in special assessments. Is that the correct understanding?
I think it is, would be did.
So no, eliminate the word not?
No, I think it should stay.
No, I think it should stay because I think what she was saying, if I'm remembering the discussion correctly, what she was saying was the amount of fees that were collected from those who did not prepay in that development was $1.7 million in 2023.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, so that was the good.
Because remember, I mean, these property owners for their did fee pay anywhere from like $2,900 to $6,000 a year.
Right, okay, so that, these would be those who did not prepay that.
Plus any interest that's associated.
Now, page 3, last paragraph. Ms. Camp stated that an assessment will need to be done of the application going forward to determine estimated cost. Just suggested restating that Ms. Camp stated that assessment will need to be done on the application to determine an estimated cost for police department presence at an event. Just a little awkward.
Anything else?
Clear as mud.
Any other changes? No? Were there any questions from anybody in the audience?
You wore us out.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as amended for May 27th.
Thank you very much. No public comment. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. The minutes are approved 5-0. Which brings us to item number 14, which is the approval of the treasurer's report dated May 31st, 2024 for the general fund, the sewer revenue fund, the waste and recycling fund, and the capital reserve fund, and the bills to be paid from these funds. Are there any questions or comments on the treasurer's report?
I will make a motion to approve the treasurer's report of May 31st and the bills to be paid from those funds.
I think that was John. All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions regarding the treasurer's report? All right, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries 5-0. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
No second. All right, thanks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight.
See you tomorrow.